Thank you, Mr. President. Let's clear some things up. This bill targets legal immigrants. This bill targets legal immigrants. You ask me why. Let me name at least 3 examples, and there are many more. Number 1, ICE has been documented since the Trump administration took office showing up to green card appointments for spouses of U.S. citizens who are lawfully obtaining green card status using the normal, lawful process. And ICE has been detaining those people, those married spouses of U.S. citizens, and taking them to detention for possible deportation. There's nothing about that example that is, quote, not following the process. 100% legal. Number 2, ICE has been failing to recognize the protected legal status of people from designated areas around the world. This administration has taken the categorical position that protected legal statuses that have been lawful legal statuses for people to seek persecution elsewhere, places with domestic instability like Haiti. This administration has taken the position that those lawful programs are unconstitutional, and federal judges have disagreed. And federal judges have stopped this administration from canceling those lawful protected status programs. In fact, this administration has taken such a hardline position that those legal statuses are actually illegitimate, that this administration, prior to taking office, made up lies about Haitian immigrants in Ohio, the state that the vice president is from. While he was representing Ohio as a candidate, he campaigned on the horrible lie that people in Springfield and his own communities were eating cats and dogs. A horrible lie that Donald Trump repeated at a presidential debate. They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. Talking about lawful immigrants to the United States. And J.D. Vance was asked about this and told the media, sometimes you have to make up a story to get attention, acknowledging that these were lies. I'll give you a 3rd example. Asylum seekers under various international treaties in the United States, if you show up on the shores of the United States looking for protection from persecution from places like Iran, in the news right now, or anywhere else that you would face political violence or persecution across the world, if you seek asylum on these shores of the United States, you are a lawful immigrant to the United States of America. I personally visited Stewart Detention Center, south of Columbus, just a couple weeks ago. And I got to talk to people who are currently detained there, and one of them was an asylum seeker, a lawful immigrant to the United States who is in ICE custody. And folks, I haven't even talked about what ICE has been doing to U.S. citizens. We can save that for another day. But that's 3 examples of lawful immigrants being detained by ICE. So unfortunately, the author, who I respect as a person, made a misstatement from the well when he said that this is about illegal immigrants or illegal immigration. Those folks may be included, but that doesn't mean that this bill only applies to people who are here unlawfully. This bill says if you are in ICE detention whatsoever, then you are subject to this DNA swab and an invasion of your constitutional rights and privacy. I went to Lawrenceville on the campaign trail a few months ago. You had bipartisan law enforcement who were present, and they were being asked questions about what it means to be forced to cooperate with ICE under current Georgia law. They're nervous about what ICE is doing. They're nervous because if ICE's conduct and decisions can bind local and state law enforcement's hands, it could subject local and state law enforcement to liability for violations of constitutional rights. Do you know there was a whistleblower within ICE? Anybody hear that story from the last week or 2? A whistleblower who said at a hearing that ICE is failing to train its officers. I think anybody who watched the events in Minnesota could tell that ICE probably hasn't trained its officers. But when you hand out $50,000 bonuses and you staff up so quickly, because why? On the campaign trail there were signs that said mass deportations. When you staff up quickly and you try to rush quotas of deportations, you're not that concerned about constitutional rights. You're not that concerned about training. So let's dispense with the fiction that this bill is about a rational government organization in the form of ICE who's only targeting people who are here illegally. What you have instead is a rogue, out-of-control agency with a bloated budget to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, hiring people without training and sicking them on U.S. citizens and immigrants alike, who are detaining multiple categories of people who are here lawfully, but deporting them anyway. It is well documented in the research that immigrants do not commit crimes at rates that are higher than U.S. citizens. I'll say that one more time. Immigrants do not commit crimes at rates that are higher than U.S. citizens. So when a tragedy happens, like to Laken Riley, for example, and I'll say her name from the well, we owe Laken Riley's parents the assurance that we are committed to public safety. And I think this building acted appropriately in honoring her parents and her family. But let's be very clear about where the debate goes from there. We cannot make the inference from violence perpetrated by immigrants that that is because they are immigrants. And to do so is a racist, xenophobic lie. We are at a time of inflation and cell phone misinformation and all kinds of global trends that are making societies across the world very distrustful of their neighbor. We live at a time where it's hard to trust our neighbors. But the easy impulse, the low road, is to just blame the outgroup, blame the immigrants for crime, blame the immigrants for all of our social ills, and then pass legislation like this that further seeks to sow distrust and legal discrimination against people just by virtue of where they're from. We had a senator who asked a question of the author who very carefully distinguished between rights for thee, but not for these folks. Rights for U.S. citizens, but not for immigrants. Wrong. When you are in the United States, when you're on our shores, all of our constitutional protections apply to you, because those constitutional protections apply with equal force to all human beings. Human beings regardless of legal status. And again, I've reviewed for you that many of the human beings here subject to ICE detention do have legal status. But this is about more than moral principles. It's about more than the high road and a noble concept of the Statue of Liberty and Jesus Christ walking hand in hand saying the same thing. Give me your tired, your poor, welcome the stranger. I can put that moral lecturing to the side and just talk to you about brass tacks politics. Politics. The country has turned against this type of bill. You had 1 year to make your case that deporting every single person who's not a U.S. citizen is somehow popular. Trump voters have had the opportunity in their communities across the country to see the damage inflicted by an out-of-control rogue ICE, to see the mom-and-pop owners, the beloved people at local restaurants in the communities ripped away from families, ripped away from their businesses, put in detention facilities in other states where their lawyers can't find them. The country has had ample opportunity for the last year to try that out. And the vast majority of Americans, including both Republicans and Democrats together, have said that is not the moral or practical policy that we think this country should follow with respect to immigration. Folks, you are underwater on this issue. And again, it's not just Kamala Harris voters who are saying that. The country doesn't want to be cruel. The country doesn't want to blame immigrants for everything. I think people, against their better judgment, heard the lies about the residents of Springfield, Ohio, and said, yeah, but affordability, yeah, but costs are high. But now people are realizing that when you make a deal with the devil and you demonize your neighbor because you think it's going to bring down costs, you lose both. The costs keep going up, and you have sown more distrust and hate in your own communities. That is the legacy that Trump will leave. That is the memory that this country will have of his failed immigration policies, his cruel, pointless immigration policies. And I submit to y'all that this DNA swab, this violation of constitutional rights to privacy, for misdemeanor charges, y'all, misdemeanors, Half the people in this room violated 2 traffic misdemeanors on the way to this Capitol building today. For a misdemeanor, you're going to violate somebody's constitutional rights because they're different, because they're from somewhere else. Look yourself in the mirror and vote for this if you want. Mr. President, I'll yield for questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you. I'll yield the will.